What's up, guys? Pastor Josh here. I hope you're doing well. As I always say, I love you. I miss you. I can't wait to see you. It is June the 10th, which means we are 3 weeks away from being able to get together. Yes, we are getting back together on July 1st, and we hope to see you there. And we are doing everything that we can to make it a safe and exciting return. Parents, let me reassure you, we will do everything possible to make sure that your students stay sanitized, that we are safe, that we are taking the proper precautions in order to make it an enjoyable and exciting return. So be on the lookout for more information about that. Reminder, tonight is bingo night. We don't only want you to attend, but we want your parents to attend as well. Actually, we encourage them to attend. You can find the link to the bingo cards on Facebook, on Instagram. I'll drop it on the link for this video, and you can grab them there. If you have trouble accessing it, just give me a direct message and I'll help you figure it out. So next week we will attempt another live service. It's just a couple weeks before we get back together, but we want to do another live service. We had so much fun with the other one, so we want to try to do it one more time before we get back together. Also, this Sunday, if you're not already aware, is our Comeback Sunday at Peerless Road Church, and we are so excited about it. So make sure that you're here. We have services at 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. You can register for which service you want to be a part of at peerlessroadchurch.com. Make sure you do that. We want to see you here. So I want to jump into a quick devotion tonight. I just want to take a few moments. I'm not going to take too long, but I had something that I had been thinking about for a couple days that had really stood out to me, and I wanted to jump into it for just a few minutes tonight. And I want to read a passage before I get into it. In 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 9 through 10. And if anybody knows what we're going to talk about tonight or knows the feeling of what we're going to talk about tonight, it would be Peter. So 1 Peter 2, verses 9 through 10 says this: "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. Once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy." And I want to ask you this question as we get started tonight. What is it that sets you apart? You specifically, you individually, what is it that sets you apart from everybody else that you're around? That's what I want us to focus on tonight. You know, it's pretty easy to call yourself a Christian. It's pretty easy to claim that you're a follower of Christ, or it's easy to say that you know God, or it's easy to say, you know what, I go to church. But what is it that sets you apart? How do people know without you ever saying a word? How would people know that you are a follower of Christ? And it's this question of how do people who aren't Christians identify those who are? You know, if you are sitting there listening to this and you call yourself a follower of Christ and you say that you are a believer and a strong follower of Jesus, then how do people that you're around on a daily basis that might not know who you are, how do they know that you're a follower of Christ? You know, I'm not saying that you have to go stand on the street and say, you know what, I'm a Jesus follower, or hold a big sign that says, I gave my life to Christ when I was 15. I'm not saying that you have to do that. In fact, what Jesus says is that we shouldn't have to do that. People should know us by the fruit that we bear. People should know us by the lives that we live. And people should be able to tell who you belong to without ever having to say a word. And I think that's the most important thing that we have to ask ourselves is the people that I'm around on an everyday basis, can they tell that I'm a follower of Christ without me ever having to say anything? And it's by how you treat people. It's by how you love people. It's by how you witness to people and how you take care of people. It's how people identify that you are different, that you are set apart. And I think it's so important that we take Peter's words into account. You know, Peter was one that had ups and downs, probably more so than anybody else in the Bible. You know, he had his good times with Jesus. He certainly had his bad times where he turned his back on him when people tried to identify him as a follower of Christ, and he denied it. Obviously, we know 3 times, and it fulfilled what Jesus was going to say. So we knew about his bad times. But in his good times, you know, Peter was the first one to ever preach a sermon after Jesus died, and 3,000 people were added to the church. So we know that Peter had some strong ties to Jesus. We know that Peter was set apart. Yes, he had his failures, but we know that he was different. We know that he was set apart. We know that he was called by God. And Peter uses some strong words And it's really why I felt drawn to this passage, knowing the background of Peter's story and the background of Peter's life. It's why I was drawn to this passage. But he uses some strong words, and he says that we were chosen people and that we're God's special people. And what that means to me is that when we commit our lives to God, when you commit your life to God, we are immediately, not 5 years after we give our lives to God, not a month after we give our lives to God, we are immediately supposed to be set apart from everybody else. When we give our hearts to God, when we make that change, when we make that decision and say, you know what, it's time to start living for Christ, it's an immediate change. It's not something that takes place over the course of time. Yes, we continue to get better every single day. We continue to grow in our faith and develop in our walk with Him, and we get stronger in our relationship with God every single day. But when you make that decision, when you commit your life to Christ and you say, what, I don't want to be the same person that I was. It's in that moment that we say, you know what, from here on out, I am setting myself apart from everyone else. I'm setting my life apart from everyone else, regardless of what that means for me. You know, we don't just set ourselves apart so that we can consider ourselves righteous and so that we don't associate with sinners. In fact, I believe that we set ourselves apart and we choose to be different so that we can reach the sinners, so that we can reach the lost, and so that we can do something about it. That's certainly the model that Jesus took. You know, Jesus, from the time that He was born, was set apart. He was different, and He was able to and I understand that He was divine and that He was fully God, but He was also fully man. So He was tempted just like we are. He was put into difficult situations just like we are. And Jesus chose to remain set apart. He chose to remain different. You know, we're not called to be different simply to stay away from sin. We're called to be different because we have a purpose. You know, you were made for so much more than what you're experiencing now. You were made to do so much more. You were made to be so much more and to accomplish so much more. And that's what God is calling us to do when He calls us to be set apart, when He calls us to be different. He is calling us for His divine purpose. So as I bring this to a close tonight, if you really want to know if you're set apart, if you are different, Jesus speaks to this in John chapter 14, verse 15. He says, if you love me, you keep my commandments. It's simple as that. If you love me, you'll keep my commandments. If you are set apart, you will keep my commandments. If you are truly different, then you will keep my commandments. And obviously we know in the book of Matthew, Jesus speaks to what those commandments are. Love the Lord your God and love the neighbor as yourself. And I think that's so important. When we are set apart, we choose to love God, we choose to love people, we choose to be different, we choose to be set apart so that we are able to do more for God's purpose in our lives. So I just want to remind you of that tonight. And I want to ask you one more time, what is it that sets you apart? And can people that are not Christians tell that you are? So just a reminder tonight, 8 o'clock, family bingo. Parents, please come hang out with us. We've got 10 prizes to give away. So come hang out with us for just a few minutes. And we'll have a good time, I promise. But we'll have more information coming out on the upcoming weeks here in the next few days. But I love you guys. I'm praying for you. I hope to see you tonight.